Welcome to Refuel with Jennifer Ballou. Join Jennifer for the next hour for a time to recharge, refresh, and refuel your heart and soul. Here's your host, Jennifer Ballou.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I am so glad you're joining me today, and a happy Valentine's Day to you. I know last year we kind of covered some Valentine history, and I was just I knew I wasn't going to have an interview ready for today. I do for next week and the next, but just kind of asking God, what do you want me to talk about? I mean, it's going to be Valentine's Day, and we could just skip over that, or we could, kind of go into something. And God really started talking to me about this whole self-care, self-love thing. I know for myself, I see it a lot on social media. I hear a lot of, like the influencers. I can't even say that word very well. It's crazy. Anyway, I hear a lot of them talk about it. I don't know. It's kind of I don't want to say a new term, but I certainly didn't hear that kind of stuff when I was younger. You didn't hear that terminology, I guess, very much. So I don't know. I've kind of always had a negative thought towards it. So I thought, well, that's weird. What? Why are we addressing this? And the more I kind of contemplated it, and it's been probably well over a month since I knew that that's what the topic was going to be. So I've been thinking on it a lot, and the more I thought about it and the more, I prayed about it and talked to God about it, I came to this realization that, during, the pandemic, like at the beginning, last year in March and April, when I was struggling, and I did so very openly on air. So, if you were listening to the radio show back then, you probably got a little bit of that every week. Because literally every week I would have just this kind of breakdown, and I would have to spend some time doing something that I could really I don't want to say disconnect, because it was almost like I could connect more with God and what he was saying, and just letting him breathe peace and life and those types of things, into me. And I could kind of shut out the to-do list and all the things that I needed to figure out and learn how to do and get done. And that was really self-care. That was self-love. That was recognizing where I was at that moment, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and taking the time to regroup. And so just, God showing me that, and, really remembering that, we can't pour from an empty vessel. And as women, especially, I think, I know a lot of men do as well, but as women especially, we pour a lot. I do. I pour into my home, into my family, into the kids at the studio, the moms at the studio, my staff. I pour into this. I pour into my other job at Broken Boutique, and into the customers there, and into the ladies that own that. I want to continually be pouring into my community. That's a lot of pouring. And if we don't stop to refuel, then, what are we pouring out? And so just kind of changing my perspective of that terminology of self-love and self-care, kind of helped me start looking at this a little differently. Excuse me. And again, I felt like God was saying, like, let's look at this. Let's talk about it. Let's explore it. And that's what I want to do today. So I hope y'all are, along for the ride. I have cords coming out of everywhere and they don't look like they're in right. Technology. I wish I could just I don't know. Anyway, I'm learning, y'all. I'm learning, but it's a thing in itself. Anyway, okay. Self-love. Obviously, I need a little self-care after doing this and editing and all that kind of stuff because it's all new and so it zaps me. But, so I also started researching a little bit of what self-care actually was, what the definition of it is, because look, I've never, again, I kind of always thought that is so I don't know. Here's the thing. I know I'm jumping all over the place. Sorry. I would hear people talk about self-care and all that kind of stuff, and the way they handled self-care sounded absolutely miserable to me. They talk about, spending an evening doing face masks and, I don't know, just different things like that. That sounds horrible to me. That does not sound like self-care. So I think that was one of the main reasons I just kind of ignored the whole thing. That's not, yes, it's good to take care of your skin. And at this point in age, I'm wishing I had probably done a better job of that. But guess what? I still haven't stopped to do it. So, that's just not my thing. And, I think with that perspective, I've just kind of ignored the whole thing and not really paid attention to what it was. So all that to say, I kind of started looking into it. And again, letting God, since he brought it up, letting him show me what he means by it, why it is a good thing, and how he can use it. So here is one of the definitions, which there were a bazillion of them, but, they all relatively say the same thing. So, self-care. It has been defined as a multidimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement in strategies that promote healthy functioning and enhance well-being. Self-care is vital for building resilience towards those stressors in life that you can't eliminate. When you've taken steps to care for your mind and body, you'll be better equipped to live your best life. Now, taking that and applying it spiritually, I was all over it. This is good stuff. This we need to remember and really study and look at and allow God to show us how we can what's the right word? How we can allow him to show us the best way to feed things in us. And I'll kind of explain that hopefully a little bit better as we go on. But one of the verses I wanted to look at was, and of course it's in the Passion because I just love how he says it in here. But it is Mark, let me make sure that's right. Yeah, Mark 12, verse 30. and 31, it says, let me find it. You are to love the Lord Yahweh, your God, with every passion of your heart, with all the energy of your being, with every thought that is within you, and with all of your strength. This is the great and supreme commandment. And the second is this: you must love your neighbor in the same way you love yourself. You will never find a greater commandment than these. So to really look at this, you must love your neighbor in the same way you love yourself. Well, let's really dissect the love yourself. Because to me, when I really look at this, it's about taking care of yourself, taking care of your neighbor. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's part of how my brain works as far as like even my love language and things like that. I don't know. Please tell me if you see this differently, but that's, how I'm taking it in as really caring for myself, that I could care for my neighbor from that same place. Because like I said earlier, you can't pour from an empty vessel. So I have to make sure that I'm full before I can truly, love my neighbor and do those things that I need to do for, those around me. Like I said, I have a pretty wide, area to cover. So, and that's, I love it. I love that God has given me that. And I love where I am in life as far as the amount of people and that, I'm surrounded by to be able to love on and care for. But that does mean I've seen myself, and yesterday was probably one of those days where I've been empty. Empty. And you know what comes out when you're empty? Just garbage. Blech. It's gross. And, I could feel myself just being short and harsh and not very caring yesterday. And I had to really work on pulling myself up and then going, okay, Jen, you got to figure out how to fill up and stop trying to run it on empty. Anyway, all that to say, so if we take this definition and really look at it spiritually, I love this part where it says it is vital for building resilience towards those stressors in life that you can't eliminate. Listen, the scripture tells us that we are always going to have stressors in life. That's just how it works. You don't avoid those. They are all around us all of the time. And if filling up with the things here's the deal. God created us in certain ways, and I am not created to sit around with a face mask on and feel rejuvenated and filled up from that. Okay? It isn't going to happen. Yes, I do like to get my nails done because I think they're pretty. Do I like to actually sit down and get them done? No. In fact, that does not fill me up. It is just something that, not right now. They're really ugly right now. But yeah, it's something I get done because of just whatever. But does it recharge me? No, it does not. So what are the things that I feel like I can mentally set everything aside, focus on the task at hand, and really hear God, or just be filled by God. Those are the types of things that I am looking for. And reorganizing a room, redecorating a room or an area, believe it or not, that recharges me. I love it. A lot of the times just cleaning does that for me. Weird, I know. Sitting down to doodle or paint does that for me. Moving, dancing, sometimes not. And a lot of that is because it is now so much a part of my job, I guess, I don't know, because occasionally now, sometimes the art is, I'm on a timeline with it, and then it's not, it doesn't refuel me. Does that make sense? So sometimes I have to differentiate. Sorry, struggle with that word too. You know what I'm saying though? Like, if I don't have a specific piece of artwork that I need to do, that I'm just sitting down just to do it for fun, or if I am, find a piece of music that I want to choreograph and dance to just for fun, that is, that fills me up. I feel the closest to God in those types of moments, and I am recharged. I am refueled with those types of things. I'm filled back up so I can pour out. If there's a timeline on it, or it's something very specific, we want you to choreograph to this piece of music for this. It has to be done by this day at this time. That is not very filling. That's work. Do I still love doing it? Yes, but I'm trying to kind of explain the difference in my thought process there. So, and one of the things that I wrote down just studying this says it is important to maintain a healthy relationship with yourself. And I feel like really looking at things like that and realizing the difference of, that yes, dance and art fill me up, but sometimes when it's on a work schedule, it doesn't. I feel like that's kind of the answer to that. Like, I understand myself. When I have scheduled out that this is when the bathrooms need to be cleaned versus, hey, I'm just going to get in here and clean this room and reorganize it and do all the things, and it's not on a timeline or whatever. It feels different. I hope that is coming across in to where it makes sense. Anyway, so we need to find those things that really, that help us build resilience to those stressors. And if we take the time every day, every week, whatever, however you want to work that in, to do those things that fill you, then I think we are better equipped with dealing with the stressors that life hands us. Is it because I created some beautiful masterpiece? No, it was because in those moments of creating, I was spending time letting my creator remind me of who I am made to be, just letting me be me. And that fills me up. For my husband, it's sitting out in the middle of the lake on a boat with a fishing pole, that fills him up. Is miserable to me. Not miserable, but I like to do things. So sitting is not one of those. For my mom, it is being out in the woods, going on walks, and just, looking at nature and just being in the midst of that fills her up. And we need to find those things that fill us up. We're just continuing this talk on self-care, and what that looks like, what it means. And really, I am talking about spiritual self-care, which I think personally, makes it to where the other areas, and I'll get into that, really work. So they say that I've seen two different things. I've seen it to where it says there's 8 areas of application, and I've seen where there's 5 areas of application. I tend to agree with the 5. The 8 seems like it's kind of an overlapping, weird kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion. So it says the 5 areas of application are physical, social, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And can I just say that if you're taking care of the spiritual, I feel like the rest of them take care of themselves pretty much. So, when we are really taking the time and not feeling guilty or, like I was thinking, well, that's just dumb. And I was really putting it into this little box, I guess is the best way I can explain it, of really looking at self-care as something that was only about face masks and beauty products. I don't know. I don't even know why I came up with that. That's just all I noticed. So, but it cannot be, because statistics here for you. It says in 2014, the self-care industry had an estimated value of $10 billion, which seems like a lot to me. But now, in the year of 2021, it has boomed to a $450 billion industry. I don't really understand what the self-care industry would be, what is labeled into that. But still, from 10 billion to 450 billion, that is a lot. So obviously people are recognizing the need for it. And I do think that kind of encompasses workout stuff, because of the physical aspect of self-care. I guess mental would be, counselors and self-help books. I don't know. I'm just throwing all this out there. Anyway. But I really feel like if we allow ourselves to sit down and say, okay, God, for me to be able to pour out and to care for those around me, to love well those around me, I do really need to learn to love myself. And what does that look like? What fills me up? So I was, just talking about how, for my mom, that would be a walk in the woods. Now, I do love going out into the woods and walking around and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily make me want to take on the world afterwards. You know what I mean? It's rejuvenating. I love doing it, but it's also not something that just is woohoo, so wonderful. So, but my mom doesn't want to sit down and paint, necessarily. That's not going to make her feel like she's been filled up. So we do need to remember that what works for one person, or what interests one person does not work for another. And this is, so typical of us in our humanity that we tend to categorize everything, which, just like I was saying, all these people were talking about self-care, and it was always about face masks and spa nights and stuff like that. That's just sounds horrible to me, it's not a horrible thing, but it sure wasn't going to fill me up. It was going to make me probably feel more stress. So we need to remember that these strategies are subjective, and that we need to allow them to be as unique as we are. I was just thinking about how unique God made us. Just even as my three girls, they're so different from each other. So much alike, but so very different. And what speaks to one is not going to speak to the other. How one of them feels refueled and recharged and just ready to take on the tasks that God has for them is going to be different for each of them. There may be some crossover a little bit, but really they're uniquely made. They are here on this earth for a unique purpose and for a unique reason. And they are put on this earth to deal with totally different and unique circumstances, totally different and unique people. Just that word, unique. I mean, God has made us all so very different. And we have to quit putting things in boxes, thinking everyone's going to fit into this perfect little prescribed way of doing things. So even in this, and I hope y'all are following along with me. I hope I'm not getting too just all over the place, because I know I can do that. And a lot of this kind of is all over the place in my brain, just because of trying to go, oh, okay, God, this is really important. This is something I really need to start looking at and focusing on, because you have called me to a really full plate. And I love having a full plate. There was a time in my life where some things were really hard, really difficult. There was some things happening that sorry, it's kind of hard to explain. That something's not quite right, but you couldn't put your finger on. And so it's just kind of bothers you. It adds to the stress levels and irritability and just whatever. And I had somebody try to tell me that it was because my plate was too full. And I was like, are you kidding me? Which, and back then it wasn't full at all compared to now. So, and they were coming at it from a place of trying to say, well, I was praying for you and this is what God showed me. And thankfully I was, in a place where I could look at them and just say, nope, that's not it. I would be miserable without a full plate. God made me to carry a full plate. This is what I do. This is who I am. It's part of it's my identity, as far as I know who I am in Christ, and I'm a full plate kind of girl. And thankfully I was in a place in my life where I could say that, and it kind of shocked her. And I know I can be kind of abrupt and whatever, but that was just one of those things where no, something's going on. And there was something going on, and it eventually came out and, whatever. But since that time, I've always, been like, okay, God, if you're taking something away, what are you adding? Or, okay, we've got this managed like really well. So what's next? That's just kind of who I am, who God made me to be. And I had a reason for saying all that. Don't know what it is now. Anyway, okay. So, but I can get that plate so full that, if I'm not taking care of myself and not doing the things to refuel me, recharge me, that, you know, it gets a little heavy. So, and I know that's what God's saying is like, hey, I can add more. We can do more, but you're going to have to learn how to, take care of yourself. And, physically, we've got that down now. It's been a journey, but I'm in that, you know, in a good place on that front. Learning it for my mental, spiritual, emotional, those all kind of go together with me. I think they do for everyone. Anyway, I just feel like I'm kind of rambling right now. I don't know why, but, I'm hoping this makes sense. I really hope it does. I hope I'm communicating this well, but this is what I'm going to jump into. In the natural world, okay, just researching whatever, it says that our focus is shifting away from the actual self of self-care, you know, really checking in and making sure that our bodies, mind, and spirits are in a healthy place, and, you know, that we're filling up like we need to. And we're going more towards the data about the self. It's not enough to just feel better. We need our devices, basically our phones, our watches, our whatevers, to affirm that we are doing the work to feel better. And we have got to put that down. And that is spiritually as well, you know, and hear me out on this, please. We can take anything and put religion on it. Quiet time, for example. You know, everybody needs it. We need to be in the Word. We need to be spending time with God, allowing Him to speak to us through through the Bible, through the words that are written, but also allowing Him to just speak into our hearts, and, you know, just helping us with directing our day, setting goals for, you know, for whatever you're setting goals for. We need that. Religion put quiet time in a box and said it needs to happen at this time of the day. And there's a reason for that. So please don't crucify me. And it has to do with the first fruits and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying don't get up and have your quiet time in the morning. Okay. But we put so much emphasis into the 5, 10, 15 minute, hour long, however you go about it, of reading the scripture and checking off the box that we did our quiet time. Okay. That's what I'm talking about, is that tick, we did it, moving on, and forget about it the rest of the day. You know what I'm saying? Because my good time with God is late at night. Now, I'm not necessarily a night owl, but when the whole day is done, that is the time where I can sit and I can let God fill me up. Am I necessarily reading the Word? Sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm listening to worship music. Sometimes I am sitting in the quiet. Sometimes I am listening to a pastor or some kind of teaching on YouTube, or just, whatever, something my mom sent me. But we need to get out of the box of, this is the prescribed time. I checked it off. I don't need to check in again. That should be enough to fill me up. It's not. That's a totally separate thing. Okay. We need to get in a place where we understand ourselves enough that we can, we know what fills us up. We know when we're getting empty. You may not require an every day or an every week fill up time. I don't know. I'm just imagining going to the gas station and, like, I've had a car where you had, I filled up at the same day every week, because that's, how, when my car needed it. Or I've had cars where, it's 2 weeks or whatever. And it may just depend on, them not going as much or whatever. But you need to know when you need to be filled up. And it's not going to look like anybody else's. You need to know what things, what activities, fill you up. What, for some people it's a nap. And take that nap. I am a bear if I take a nap. You don't want me to. So, but some people need that. Some people really need a full day of Sabbath rest. And that is a lot different than what you probably think a Sabbath rest is. Research it, look into it. Some of us need, a day to unplug and not have any technology around us, and to focus on, an activity that we really enjoy doing. And we need those around us to understand that's what we need. We need to encourage each other to do those things, to take the time to fill up, not shame each other for that, not just that's really the only thing I can think is that a lot of times we shame people for, needing that time. Is, wives, a lot of us, we just like roll our eyes and don't understand that our husband needs a day to recharge out on the lake, or, playing baseball, soccer. I don't know what all your husbands do. Building something. They just need to go in the shop and build something, or, whatever. We need to understand that all of us need things to help us recharge, that God created us that way, and that we need to invest in that. Do we need to spend $450 billion? I don't think so, but art supplies can get expensive. So, and that's what I'm going to invest in a little bit. So, whatever. Fishing equipment gets pretty pricey, boats and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe that price tag is well worth it. But what this does is it enhances our ability to live fully, vibrantly, and effectively. Fully, vibrantly, and effectively. I want to be effective in the kingdom. I want to be effective in people's lives. I want to live a full and vibrant life outside of the boxes, outside of religion, outside of the, perceptions and whatever I've even placed on myself. I want to live outside of that and do it big and well. And to do that, I need to take the time to love myself enough to back up. So I just wanted to read a few verses to you that kind of really spoke to me along with this whole thought process of self-love, self-care. And there is a difference because I think the whole self-love thing is kind of really speaking positively to yourself, not putting yourself down, that type of thing. Like if you really looked at definitions, out in the culture today. But to me is, like in Mark 12, verse 31, where it's talking about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. That to me makes it, we're trying to bring this all into more of a spiritual focus. And, to me, they translate the same, self-care and self-love, because to love myself, I need to take care of myself. And to love others well, we need to learn how to care for ourselves, to care for others. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So the first verse I want to read to you, and I have a mess going here on my desk, is Proverbs chapter 3, verse 8. Actually, I'm going to back up. Proverbs 3, verse 5, which was one of our verses for, actually this whole section. If you're, if you're one of the patrons and you get the daily scriptures, we actually, for our daily scriptures, did verses 5 through 10, because it's just so good. And then it just kind of plays right into the whole self-care thing. So I'm just going to go back up to verse 5. It says, "Trust in the Lord completely and do not rely on your own opinions. With all your heart, rely on him to guide you, and he will lead you in every decision you make. Become intimate with him in whatever you do, and he will lead you wherever you go. Don't think for a moment that you know it all. For wisdom comes when you adore him with undivided devotion and avoid everything that's wrong. Then you will find the healing refreshment your body and spirit long for. Glorify God with all your wealth, honoring him with your very best, with every increase that comes to you. Then every dimension of your life will overflow with blessings from an uncontainable source of inner joy." So when we look at verse 8, then you will find the healing refreshment your body and spirit long for. That is, that's what we are talking about here. So when you look at the other verses, that we want to become intimate with him in whatever we're doing. So those things that I love to do, and if I am doing it in that place of God, fill me up, then I can scrub a toilet and be intimate with him. Does that make sense? That is kind of what I'm talking about, that we find those pockets of things where we can, where we spend adoring him, because it is just part of who we are and who he made us to be. He develops something within us when we're doing those activities, and I'm going to just say a nap can be an activity. If the spa thing and doing the face masks and all that is something you love, then let God love on you doing that. Become intimate with him during those moments, because then we find the healing refreshment that our body and our spirit long for. And it does long for those things. And then that verse 10, every dimension of your life will overflow with blessings from an uncontainable source of inner joy. That is it. I mean, just like I was saying, that when we really connect into this, when we are really doing this, it enhances our ability to live fully, vibrantly, and effectively. Well, that's because there's an overflow that we can pour out of, that we aren't trying to pour from, just the little bit that's left or from an empty vessel. We are pouring from an overflow. So there is no end to what we can pour out. There is no end to the love that we can give our neighbors. That it is just, and we know how to tap into those things. And listen, even if we can't, if the plate is full and things are happening and going, and I know that they will be at some, there's weeks where it ain't happening. I'm not getting some of the time that I would like to get, doing things that fill me up. It's okay, because there is an overflow. I know how to tap into that place of rest and of refueling without actually having to do the activity. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. This is just such a new subject to talk about, and not one I've heard talked about a lot. That's why I keep hoping I'm making sense. Another verse is found in Psalms, Psalm 104, verse 15. Let me get there. It says, "You provide sweet wine to gladden hearts. You give us daily bread to sustain life, giving us glowing health for our bodies." I mean, that just says it all. He wants to give you the things that you need to fill you up, to, for that joy, for the daily bread, the glowing health. That's his desire for us. So here's another scripture. It's Proverbs chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 20 through 23. It says, "Listen carefully, my dear child, to everything that I teach you, and pay attention to all that I have to say. Fill your thoughts with my words until they penetrate deep into your spirit. Then, as you unwrap my words, they will impart true life and radiant health into the very core of your being. So above all, guard the affections of your heart, for they affect all that you are. Pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being, for from there flows the wellspring of life." So again, we need to take the time to maintain a healthy relationship with ourselves. And that means doing things to take care of our minds, our bodies, and our souls by engaging in activities that promote well-being, and reduce stress. But that's kind of I don't think you can reduce stress. I think you learn how to handle stress. Does that make sense? But reading this, when we pay attention to the welfare of our innermost being, if we really maintain a healthy relationship with ourselves, knowing when we're feeling depleted, knowing when we need that time to recharge, refuel, to really fill up, we go back to that thing of there's an overflow. If we are communicating with ourselves, and I know that sounds weird, but really doing these check-ins, these heart check-ins, and learning what we need, really grasping that we are starting to get empty before that storm takes place. Because, as moms, especially when we get empty, it becomes a thing. So, but if we can really tap into those things before that happens, and put the to-do list aside, or at least make it shorter so that you have, and schedule in the time for, what? I need to take the time to do this so that I can fill back up. Then again, from there flows the wellspring of life. When we are using that time to allow God to fill our thoughts with his words until they penetrate deep into our spirit, and we allow him to impart life and health into who we are, that is going to make all the difference in the world of being able to be who he's called us to be. Being able to operate in a way that we are bringing the kingdom here on earth. I'm not going to be a very good representative of the kingdom of God if I am running on fumes. It's not a pretty sight. And it will not be a good representation of the kingdom. And, using that terminology, that's, what we are talking about here at the dance studio right now, is being a kingdom rep. That's the name of our show this year. And so God's really been, this process of really, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does a representative of the kingdom, what all does that entail? And being full, pouring from an overflow, is part of that process. And the only way for me to not pour from an empty vessel, and to not be running on fumes, is to make sure that I understand where I am day in and day out, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And, to really double check, is this just emotional? Because, emotions are not good indicators of truth. And, that's part of the process of looking and being in a healthy relationship with myself, is knowing that I have allowed emotions to take over or whatever. One of those things, knowing your Enneagram, which I know you're probably sick of hearing that, but I feel like that is part of being in a healthy relationship with yourself. I can pinpoint now when I am starting to get stressed about things, because I do become emotional, or I start just beating myself up, and that's not okay. And it's not the way, God intended for me to behave. And it's not a good representation of the kingdom of God and how he wants us to live. And so, knowing those things, using those tools, taking the time to be truthful with myself and understand myself is a big deal. And just part of this kind of self-care journey. And really, I wish I could come up with a different term for it, because I feel like it's really should be this journey of learning to refuel. back to the name of the show here, but I feel like that's what we need. We need to make sure that we are fueling ourselves, filling up so that we can pour out and be a kingdom rep. So I hope you've learned a few things. Sorry for some of the babbling on it. But we're learning and growing in this. And yeah, thanks for joining me. If you want more information, visit our website and email me. It's refuelwithjennifer.com. See you guys later. Bye.